All right, buckle up, everybody. It is the semifinals here in Grand Prix Detroit. TJ Rogers here with Jake Van Lunen, and we are going to be kicking things off with the Creature Mirror Match. Spirits versus Humans. One currently alive, the other one recently returned.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a really interesting match. Both players trying to do very similar things to each other. John Rowe on this Humans deck, his creatures are mostly on the ground.
So noble hierarchs from both players to kick things off, but that is going to get followed up by Geist of St. Traft, the 3-mana 2/2 that is an explosive attacker.
Yeah, and now Geist of St. Traft is not the best card in this matchup. Paulo Vitor really wants to have flyers that can really only be interacted with via the Mantis Riders out of John Rowe's deck. The problem with Geist of St. Traft is that it's really easy for a card like Thalia, Garden of Thraben, to jump in the way and make that not nearly as impressive.
And of course, now she has made herself known on the battlefield, that 2/1 first striker, alongside Champion of the Parish, which is going to be a 2/2. And it looks like we are going to see a Drogskull Captain come down. It's going to give those spirits +1/+1 and hexproof, attack in, and create an angel.
Now, this is really great for Paulo because he has the Exalted trigger from the Noble Hierarch, which will happen because the Geist of St. Traft attacked alone before the trigger happened. Then he also gets the +1/+1 here from the Drogskull Captain. This means the Geist of St. Traft is actually a 4/4. So if John Rowe wants to get that Geist of St. Traft off the table, he needs to get rid of both Champion of the Parish and Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. And if he doesn't do so, he's taking 8 damage already. And his opponent has a significantly more powerful board.
Oh my, and it looks like that might be the case. We have got to be feeling pretty good. We saw a Misty Rainforest join the battlefield as well, and it's going to be a pass back. Big hit in for 8. Paulo Vitor already setting the pace, something that you really mentioned was a feature of this Spirits deck.
Yeah, both of these decks, if one of them is winning, it's because they're flooding the board more than the opponent. The thing the Spirits deck really has going for it is that it rules the sky. And in doing so, it has the ability to dictate race math. It can chump block with some things and then get in a clean attack in the air pretty easily.
Now we are going to see Thalia's Lieutenant come on down to the battlefield. That's going to be 2 +1/+1 counters on the Champion of the Parish because a human also entered the battlefield. Noble Hierarch becomes a mighty 1/2 champion. Or I'm sorry, Thalia becomes a 3/2 with first strike. And that Thalia's Lieutenant is going to be joined by another Noble Hierarch, also adding a counter to itself.
So this board just exploded on this turn for John Rowe. He added tons of power. Now this Champion of the Parish attacking for a massive 7 points of damage. That's almost as much as that Geist of St. Traft attacked for in the turn before.
Both of these players really capable of producing a crippling amount of damage early on. It just is going to be, this big idea of when you're heading into the race, you need to consider how much might be coming back at you.
Yeah, and that's what these players need to figure out. This is a race, but it's a race with a lot of complicated math. You need to figure out how much you can attack your opponent for without letting yourself die on a swing back. And that's what these players are really going to be, mulling over in the key turns of the game.
Now, this is a deck that is running Collected Company. We have had 4 mana as of yet, but that Thalia holding it back. If there is a Collected Company, having access to this 5th mana might mean that that is now an option. And with Collected Company, especially when you have the potential, there's lords within the deck like this Drogskull Captain or Supreme Phantom. It's always interesting to me when you have this aspect of playing it either proactively on your main phase, reactively on their turn, anything like that.
Oh, and it definitely comes up quite a bit. Sometimes you may even want a Collected Company during your main phase before you attack so that you know whether or not you're hitting those lords, to know whether or not you have a favorable attack. But a lot of the time you want to hold it up so that you can use it at instant speed. This allows you to gain a big advantage with cards like Spell Queller or Mausoleum Wanderer.
And it is going to be that Geist of St. Traft attacking once more. It is a 4/4 currently, getting that Exalted trigger because that Angel wasn't around when it jumped into this fray alongside the boost from the Drogskull Captain. We get a blocker in the way in the form of that Noble Hierarch, so no damage from the Geist of St. Traft. However, that Angel still able to get across, knock John Rowe down to 8. But a massive board for John Rowe as he gets to untap. This Champion of the Parish currently a 5/5. Thalia's Lieutenant also, and Thalia herself.
Yeah, don't be deceived, though, by the lonely 3 creatures here on Paulo Vitor's side of the table, because we talked about Collected Company, and it stinks of collected company right now.
Mhm.
There is basically nothing else that Paulo could have. John Rowe knows this based on the fact that Paulo just had access to 5 mana on this turn.
There's going to be a phantasmal image from John Rowe, and we might be getting a response. Could be something in the form of Spell Queller. Another option. You know, one of the nice benefits about this deck is that it's so loaded up with instant, flash creatures that it can really represent quite a few things. But we're playing around with these 4 lands, maybe considering what else we might be looking at for blocks, as this phantasmal image is likely, or I'm going to be a Thalia's Lieutenant. And there it is. We're tapping that Noble Hierarch for mana. It's going to be taking a look at the top 6. And in that pile, there is actually a Spell Queller. So he could end up using that to eliminate and also getting a Noble Hierarch. That means that he is actually going to get 2 Exalted Triggers if he wants to get aggressive with this Geist of St. Traft. Phantasmal Image not able to come down to the board. And that Spell Queller is a 3/4 because of the Drug Captain. Also has Hexproof.
Also worth noting, that Noble Hierarch is a valuable chump blocker here. Right now, this Champion of the Parish could start getting out of hand in the coming turns. And Paulo, he wants to make sure that he's the one who's deciding who's going to win this race. Having that extra body on the ground, that can help him do that.
All right, and it's going to be Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, attacking in. It is a 3-powered creature, or I'm sorry, 4-powered creature because of this Exalted, which means that blocking it with the Spell Queller, not as much of an option. We are just going to take that hit. We are going to untap. And now it is Paulo Vitor Dominarosa seeing if he can get something done with this board. Now, of course, in true Matt Nass fashion, you can see that he has already assembled at least 1 game win with his Hardened Scales Affinity deck. That is certainly a fast one.
Yeah, that deck can win very fast, especially against a Valakut opponent who doesn't draw a lot of interaction.
Mausoleum Wanderer comes down to the battlefield, and it is going to be the attack all out. We still have both copies of Noble Hierarch, but none of that Exalted is happening. That Geist of St. Traft attacking as a 3/3, the Angel. A 4/4, that Spell Queller, and that is going to be just about enough to get things done.
Yeah, 8 points of damage in the air. We talked about how important Invasion was going to be in this matchup, and Paulo Vitor just made it known why.
Yep, and those points coming from the Drug Captain, the Spell Queller, and the Angel that was created from the Geist of St. Traft.
Correct.
All right, well, they are going to be heading into Game 2, but looking down the line, Sam Pardee, Matt Nass, and Paulo Vitor Dominarosa, they seem to be pretty in sync right now, already racking up 1 game win apiece. John, Felix, and Dan have got their work cut out for them. Now, heading into the finals is you got to win the next 6 games for your team consecutively.
Yeah. They cannot afford to lose 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could just win 4 games between 2 matches.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, but they cannot afford to lose another 2 games.
Would it be cool if they got all 6, though?
Yeah, that would definitely be the way to do it. The maximum comeback.
True. 4 to 5. 4 to 5 is the magic number. That's really what you're looking for. So they're going to be heading into the sideboard. Of course, because all of these teams did end up finishing right around the same time, we've been really doing our best this weekend to make sure that we are always in the middle of the action heading on over. But at this moment, we are going to get the opportunity to see really some collaborative sideboarding as they're all kind of in the same action. All these players, they've been playing together for 2 full days. And I think they have really kind of dialed into the timing of this because now they're even sideboarding together.
Yeah. They're all on the exact same wavelength.
Oh, yeah.
There's also something to be talked about for the psychology of playing in one of these team events. When you look to your left and your teammate just lost a game, and you just lost a game, and then you look to your right and your other teammate just lost a game, it's really hard to maintain the same level of play that you've had over the course of the weekend because you feel defeated at that point. And overcoming that is a really difficult skill to have. And it would be really impressive if these guys were able to, put all the stress behind them and play their best and come back.
Yeah, it's got to be it's got to be an experience in and of itself to walk into the semifinals of a Grand Prix and sit down against 3 players who are absolutely legendary in their field. 2 of these, absolutely known for their ability to play the game of Modern.
Yeah, two modern masters, if you will. Two of maybe the the greatest Modern Masters ever sitting next to one of the greatest players ever. And not even like one of the greatest players like, oh, this guy's in the Hall of Fame. Like a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. It's hard to argue against him being, top 2 or 3 of all time.
Now, you might be wondering who it is that we're talking about. Well, Paulo Vitor Damarosa, of course, the player lining up as one of the greats of all time. And then Sam Pardee and Matt Nass, both absolutely phenomenal in the modern realm. Matt Nass, even recently, taking away 2 Grand Prix wins, doesn't even bring that deck to the event.
Yeah, actually, I believe one of them was just a top 8.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, he top 8'd one Grand Prix with Clarkland Ironworks, and then he won in Hartford with Clarkland Ironworks. But still, very impressive.
I was under the impression it was 2 wins and a top 8. I may have been mistaken there. So we have got Inkmoth Nexus, a stomping ground, and that stomping ground is going to go for Search for Tomorrow, among the best turn 1 plays that this deck has to offer.
Yes, absolutely. With that Search for Tomorrow, that turns this deck into a turn 4 combo deck.
It's going to be Farseek. You got to search your library for a mountain, swamp, plains, or island. Can't be a forest, but it can be a forest in addition to something else. That's going to be Stomping Ground coming down to the battlefield, and that Search for Tomorrow is going to come off of Suspend next turn before even making the first land drop of turn 3. We are going to be having 4 mana available. You kind of saw that with Felix in the shuffling. Like, sure, I'll shuffle a little bit if it ends up getting interacted with, but I'm probably going to be looking through again. Not a whole lot of point in presenting the deck just yet.
Yeah, and that's a nice shortcut there, making sure that the game moves at a reasonable pace. We've been seeing a lot of draws this weekend. Felix, even though we're in the semifinals now, that's not an option. He knows how to play quickly.
And actually, the 2 cards in hand there for Felix, one of them is another copy of Farseek, able to get up to that 6 mana, which is right where you want to be for a Primeval Titan. However, the other card in hand, and it'll be curious to see if he wants to run this out or save it, Sweltering Suns.
Yeah, Sweltering Suns, a great card against this go-wide strategy on Matt Nass's side of the table. The one thing he has to worry about is that because Matt Nass has that Steel Overseer, there are a lot of ways that Nass could quickly get the toughness of his creatures above 3.
Mm-hmm. Especially, the deck is called Hardened Scales, and that card can really throw off the math. If you really don't expect there to be, from 1 to 3 or to 4 even across the board, Steel Overseer and Hardened Scales, certainly, if there's anything that's going to get it done, it's going to start with those 2 cards. Windswept Heath here on the fetch, and yeah, I'll be curious to see what he wants to do with this. One thing that I really love about the Sweltering Suns, as opposed to something like Anger the Gods, which is also in the deck, is that cycling ability can be a really nice boon when you are going up against matches that we've seen throughout the weekend. Something like Clarkland Ironworks, and we are going to fire this off, or Blue-White Control. You don't want that Sweltering Suns. You don't want that 3 damage sweeping effect. Having the ability to cycle can be really nice. But we are going to fire that one down. 3 mana, 3 damage to all of the 1 creature on the battlefield.
Yeah, so able to clean up Matt Nass's side of the table there. And like you said, Sweltering Sun's just an incredible card because it's not completely dead when you draw it in these matchups where you definitely don't want that effect. It's a good way for a red-green combo deck to have some interaction that can turn into a different card when it's not relevant.
And it looks like that decision to go for Sweltering Suns may have paid off because he has got not only a copy of Hardened Scales in hand, but a Mox Opal, as well as a Hangerback Walker. There was a lot of potential out of this hand to create a pretty problematic situation. Now, Matt Nass has got to salvage something because he's got to start casting some artifacts before he's even able to use this Mox Opal, which means that the Hardened Scales would be coming down after he plays down these creatures with +1/+1 counters.
Yeah, this Hangerback Walker performs very well against a card like Sweltering Suns. Not so much against something like Anger of the Gods, though.
All right, so we're seeing a 2-mana play, and I think he's considering right now between the Hangerback Walker and the Walking Ballista. He chooses the Hangerback Walker. That's going to make some Thopters later in the game. It enters in with that many +1/+1 counters, and when it dies, you put in that many 1/1 Thopters. As it goes on, of course, this one, its ability does cost mana. You got to pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Mox Opal joins the battlefield. That is going to throw down a Hardened Scales. A backup Mox Opal comes down to the battlefield. It is legendary, which means that the first one goes away, and that's going to give us the 2 mana for Walking Ballista, coming down with 2 counters on it. Why not both, says Matt Nass.
Wow.
Oh no! Anger of the Gods comes down. Who needs to cycle when the card's always perfect? And this is especially relevant. This exiles instead of destroying them, which means that we will not even get the Thopters from Hangerback Walker. No way to sacrifice it in response. The perfect draw.
Yeah, absolutely perfect draw there for Felix. The only thing that could have been better there was if he just... I guess a 7th land escape shift would only be 18 damage, and Matt Nass doesn't take any damage. So, yeah, no, that is just absolute perfect.
That's going to be another Hardened Scales, and we did get in an attack with this Inkmoth Nexus. We have got Felix with 1 poison counter, 15 life. Matt Nass, as of yet untouched, at 20 life. No 7th mana yet from Felix. It's just going to be a pass back, but that means that that card in hand is something.
Yeah, it means that it's a reactive card. If it was a land, Felix would be playing it. If it was a ramp spell, he would be playing it so that he could potentially make his cards more powerful.
And Lightning Bolt, the answers just keep coming together for Felix. This has been a pantheon of what he wanted to draw here in Game 1. Or actually, in Game 2. My apologies. It's the first game that we're seeing out of it. But Arcbound Worker is going to join the battlefield. Now, it is normally modular 1, just a single +1/+1 counter, but it's got some Hardened Scales. It's been really working on its defense, and it's going to drop in as a 3/3. 7 mana currently available for Felix. He does find that last land, 1 card in hand. Both of these players kind of living off the top right now.
That tends to happen in a lot of modern matchups. These decks in particular tend to not have a lot of card selection. Escape Shift is exceptionally powerful, but it finds itself in a lot of situations where it's living off the top of its library. The thing is, when you're playing with Primeval Titans and Escape Shifts, those are cards that when you draw them off the top, even if you have nothing else going on, they're often good enough to win the game on their own.
Looks like we are going to see a 1-mana play in this Mox Opal. What is it going to be? This is the kind of deck that, you know, in Ancient Stirrings can be a really nice way to... It's the only access that they have, but we're actually going to float a mana off of that, play down another Mox Opal, and it's going to be an animation module that finally comes down. Now, this is a card that it allows him to hold up 3 mana, and this might be a situation where he intends to proliferate, if you will, the poison counter, use that 3-mana ability to choose a counter on target permanent or player, and give that player another kind. No, we're in fact going to go for the Arcbound Worker, and part of the reason for that is because of the Hardened Scales. That is going to turn it into a 6/6 that attacks in. Felix down to 9.
Yeah, that Arcbound Worker is going to grow really fast here thanks to Animation Module, and Animation Module has been incredible all weekend as we've watched it. We've watched Matt Nass create tons and tons of servos by spending mana as he's putting more counters on Arcbound Ravagers.
And I think it's just lands in hand for Felix. After having the Sweltering Suns, the Anger of the Gods, and the Lightning Bolt, he has got no answer that I can tell to this massive Arcbound Worker, which is going to be a 9/9 heading into combat this turn. That would be exactly enough to finish this game out. If Felix, I saw a couple of lands. If there's some other card that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of card could deal with a creature this size right now. It's going to be attacking for 9. This Worker needs to get a raise. You know, this is a 9/9 he's about to be?
Clearly management material.
He has a 9/9. I don't think he should really just have worker status anymore.
All right, well, we have got the attack in. No response as of yet, and unless there is a mysterious Ancient Grudge that I am not seeing, this is going to be a 9/9 Arcbound Worker. Give him a raise. All right, that is going to do it. Felix falls to Matt Nass. John Rowe able to get a game against Paulo Vitor Rosa. So John Rowe holding on to hope for his team, but it's going to come down to Dan Lanthier and John Rowe. Let's jump on down to Dan versus Sam Pardee. Pardee on Hollow One.
Yeah, things looking pretty good for Dan right now, though. Rest in peace on the battlefield, and this card is quite strong against the Hollow One strategy. Turns off things like Blood Gas, things like Flamewake Phoenix, and generally just makes a lot of what the deck is trying to do worse. That Jace the Mind Sculptor is a good way to interact with Hollow One. It's a good way to interact with Delve creatures. You can return those things to your opponent's hand, where they will either have to have another discard outlet to get it out of their hand, or have a lot of things in their graveyard to delve away, which they obviously will not because of Rest in Peace. So currently, you have to like Dan's spot here.
Yep, Jace the Mind Sculptor, a Field of Ruin, and Rest in Peace holding the line, and eventually with one more land, he'll be able to put together that Celestial Colonnade. And it looks like we might be firing off this Field of Ruin in response to this attack at Jace. I wonder if this might be something to the tune of maybe Vendilion Click. This is remaining 3 mana, or it could be any one of the slew of removal spells available to this blue-white deck.
Oh, yeah. It still, at this point, could be just about anything.
We're going to fire down an Opt. This is going to give us the ability to scry one and then draw a card. These players, of course, they just did both shuffle up, find a basic land. So getting that all taken care of before we get this one underway.
So the major reason that I imagine that Field of Ruin was used there is because the Jace Brainstorm was likely used on the turn prior. So Dan is using that Field of Ruin.
Wow, good draw. Snapcaster Mage is the draw. That's going to be exiled. It blocks the Hollow One, heads to the graveyard itself because of that Rest in Peace. And Jace the Mind Sculptor with 2 counters. Probably, you know, it owes a thank you to that Snapcaster.
Oh, it does. Jace, you know, he's thankful.
He is.
Gets to stick around for a while. Hopefully gets to put a Terminus back on the top of his friend Dan's library, where then his friend Dan can use something like an Opt.
Oh. Baneslayer Angel, it is your favorite, Jake, and it's on the battlefield. The mighty 5/5. It beats this Hollow One in combat. It beats this Bloodghast. A Path to Exile cleans it up as well, and now this Thoughtseize does not really get to do a whole lot.
Yeah, this Baneslayer Angel is now dominating the board. Just 10-point life swings, chunks taken out of Sam's life total here.
With only 3 mana remaining, we can't use anything like a Faithless Looting out of the graveyard. That means that I'm going to say this blue-white control looks like it has just about locked up this game via Baneslayer Angel. So we're going to jump on over to Humans versus Spirits. Supreme Phantom lining up against the champion of the parish. We have also got Thalia's Lieutenant, so both of these cards rocking a +1/+1 counter at the moment. Supreme Phantom, the 1/3 recent addition. Other spirits you control get +1/+1. One of these 2-mana lords, always powerful.
Absolutely. One of the things that John Rowe really has going for him in this game is that he had the turn 1 Ether Vial. This means that he's going to be able to develop out his board very quickly. If he has 2 lands along with the Vial, he'll likely be able to empty his hand much quicker than Paulo will be able to. If his hand has enough gas, this could power his way to victory.
And we've currently, now there's that Dramoka's command. Are we going to see a +1/+1 counter on the Phantom and then fight a creature you don't control pointed at that Thalia's Lieutenant? You got to love this. Dramoka's command, always a card that when it shows up in a list, I'm happy. It just does all cool things.
Yeah, Dramoka's Command, a pretty impressive card. Super powerful sideboard option against many things in Modern right now. Reasonable sideboard option in a matchup like this, but who can scoff at a nice 2-mana removal spell when you're playing a Tribal Mirror?
And here's one thing about this semifinals match. This one, as well as the battle between Dan and Sam Pardee, are both very much on the line. For John Rowe and Dan, they are fighting to where they both need to win in order to lock in their spot in the finals here at Grand Prix Detroit for Paulo Vitor Damarosa and Sam Pardee. They are both looking at each other thinking, all right, only one of us needs to take down our game. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
Let's get that business to work, whichever one, you know. I switched halfway through.
I thought you were saying let's get to bed. I was like, it's a little early for that. We still got a couple more games of Magic.
What? Yeah, it's
Let's
only
do
5. We got time. All right, Kitesail Freebooter. It's joining into the battlefield. Will it have any targets? No, another Supreme Phantom, and this Kitesail Freebooter doing an impression we have seen often in these creature matchups. It is going to be a neat Stormcrow.
Yes.
Color shifted, different creature type, but still.
Yeah, it still gets +1/+1 counters from our lieutenants.
That's true. That's true. We do have a Path to Exile cleaning up the rest of it, so it is that Kitesail Freebooter up against the Supreme Phantom. Whoa, never mind. That is a Reflector Mage clearing it off the board, and we know that that is particularly unfortunate, and as does John. He took a look at that hand with the Kitesail Freebooter, and now he knows that there are 2 cards trapped in Paulo Vitor's hand.
Yeah, a really nice play there from John Rowe. He knows that Paulo's hand is a pair of Supreme Phantoms after that Reflector Mage. He's able to prevent Paulo from making any play on that turn, and this could give John Rowe the opportunity that he needs to start flooding the board and taking over this game. Problem is he's out of cards, so he's going to start cashing in Horizon Canopies. He's going to hope his draw steps are live because both these players at this point seem to be living off the top.
Horizon Canopy, a very aptly named card, you know, because you're really only using that second ability when you're looking at the horizon. Looks to the horizon for the answer, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, it's Reflector Mage and Kitesail Freebooter. We do have that Aether Vial on 2. 4 mana currently available for Paulo Vitor Damarosa. If we had less information about his hand, I would certainly suspect this Collected Company, but I think he's only got the 2 in hand, or is there a mystery card that could be? I think he just has the 2. I shouldn't hype that up. I shouldn't hype that up only to disappoint myself.
Both these players are a bit flooded at this point. I know they only have 4 lands in play, but in a matchup like this.
Oh no, Meddling Mage. This has got to be naming Supreme Phantom.
Oh, it absolutely is. So John Rowe here effectively casting a pair of Inquisition of Kozilek's and adding a 2/2 to the battlefield.
Oh, this is just devastating. Thalia's Lieutenant joins the battlefield as well. +1/+1 counters to the team, and now we have the ability to attack for 5, and we're going to be able to add another 3 to that next turn. This is now an uphill battle for Paulo Vitor Damarosa.
Yeah, Paulo really needs to find a Collected Company off the top of his library and really needs to get lucky off of that Collected Company if he wants to find a way back into this game.
Single creatures are just not going to do it to the same capacity here. And now he's got 2 cards in hand, these Supreme Phantoms, normally such a boon to his game plan, that are withering away in his hand because of this Meddling Mage. And they would have gotten away with it too. All right, so what have we got for Paulo? This is a big draw, looking for an answer to the situation that he has found himself in. Path to Exile is going to be able to take down this Meddling Mage. He does find a removal spell. That means that he can put down one of these Supreme Phantoms. It will be a 1/3, which is not incredible against this, but it is able to get in the way of, say, the Kitesail Freebooter, and Paulo is still at 14. So John Rowe is going to need to really kind of continue what it is that he needs to do. He needs to keep applying pressure to the board right now and try and put together something, because Paulo, now the way is open for him next turn to turn these Supreme Phantoms into a couple of 2/4s.
Yeah. Both these players seem to be drawing live from this point of the game. See if it keeps going.
And we're going to cycle this other Horizon Canopy, pay 1 mana, tap it, sack it. Draw a brand new card. Still 4 mana available. Also this Aether Vial, which has remained on 2. Has had the option at each upkeep to keep on moving on up. Leaving it at 2. Tell me about that, Jake.
I think John Rowe may be attempting to play tricks with something like Thalia's Lieutenant. Or he may simply want to use a Kitesail Freebooter during Paulo's draw step at some point or another.
Ooh, now that would be a nice way just to make sure that you've got all the information necessary. And I suppose something like a Collected Company, he'd be able to cast it in response. But
Still,
you
don't get blown out by it at instant speed.
at least then you know, you know?
Yeah.
All right, there's the attack all out. This Supreme Phantom has the ability to jump in front of one of them. It is going to be an attack from this Kitesail Freebooter for 2, Thalia's Lieutenant for 1, and this Reflector Mage for 3, because of those handy-dandy +1/+1 counters that the Lieutenant gave out as rations to the rest of the humans. I assume that's what it is. You know, he like showed up with all the supplies, rationed it out among everybody else, and being a good lieutenant, just kept none for himself. And then when they do well, it gives him this, personal boost of self-reward.
I like that. I think that there's good flavor on that card, right? So he's going around giving everybody food, and food obviously makes you have more power and toughness.
It certainly has for myself, you know. I have to assume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She's great.
She is phenomenal. She just helps out all the troops. All right, we're going to see another one of these Thalia's Lieutenants, and they are going to do more of this Wonderful, wonderful work. So, +1/+1 counters across the group. We're going to see a couple of them put onto this Thales Lieutenant. And right now, she's just a 1-1, but, of course, any other humans that join the battlefield are going to be giving her up that boost.
And now, because he had left that vial on 2, it means that if the Supreme Phantom had chosen to block the Kite Cell freebooter there, that it could have just gotten gobbled up for absolute free.
All right, looks like it is going to be that new Supreme Phantom. Double Supreme. On order. Looks like we might have another option of a 2-mana play. What is it? Phantasmal Image. Triple Supreme. They're all 3/6s. They are built up right now. So 3/6s, massive walls, not able to get aggressive just yet, and it is going to be back over to John Rowe.
3/5s, right?
3/5. Well, they're 1/3. Yeah, you're right. You're right. There are 3/5s.
That's okay.
I was really excited about this. I was really excited about it.
Yeah, they're very supreme.
Yeah.
They all have sour cream and tomato.
Attributing false defense to these things. All right, Reflector Mage, 2 Thales Lieutenant, and a Kite Sail Freebooter joined by these 2 Aether Vials. And John Rowe seeing what he can do with this card in hand. That's a lot of toughness to fight through.
It is a lot of toughness.
Of course, just about anything that you point at it would kill this Phantasmal Image.
There aren't many pointers
No.
in humans, though.
Reflector Mage is a good pointer,
Yeah.
you know?
Phantasmal Image.
But I think that's one of the ones that doesn't quite point well. Well, I guess it could become a Reflector Mage and then become a
Yes.
pointer.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. As long as there's another Reflector Mage, then Phantasmal Image is a great pointer.
Yes.
All right.
Just has to join forces. It has to learn from its friends.
Don't we all? You know?
It's true.
That's why I'm so glad that you're here, Jake.
That's
Always
why
a
I'm
nice,
glad that you're here.
always a nice opportunity to learn from you here in the booth. Your perspective, always amazing. Drug Captain eliminating that Phantasmal Image ability. That's going to be another boost to this team. Now they've got 6 toughness.
Oh, yes, they do.
They have got that +1/+1 and hexproof to the team. That means that each of these Supreme Phantoms, while individually they might be a 1/3, of course, 3 of their friends helping them out, and that is going to make them into 4 6s, and we're going to get aggressive with this Phantasmal Image.
It's a 5/5 Droxel Captain, a bunch of 4/6 Supreme Phantoms.
It's not a bad 3-mana investment.
Not at all. And to think Paulo was having to pass the turn because he had a pair of Supreme Phantoms stranded in hand just a few short turns ago.
Oh, absolutely. Finding that path to exile for the Meddling Mage was a really big opportunity for him.
Yeah, that was definitely the turning point of this game. It was very exciting.
And of course, you know, beyond that, he's also had the ability to really continue assembling what he's doing. That Phantasmal Image, that Drogskell Captain. Oh, yes. Riders of Gavany crashes in, and that means that it is nothing but amazingness. The sideboard card that is my favorite right now crashes in, and these humans are unable to be startled by these ghosts and spirits. Crashing in. Riders of Gavany getting it done.
Oh, the Ghostbusters themselves.
Ooh.
This is impressive. This is the second time this weekend that we've seen Riders of Gavany cast, and both times we've seen it, it has just outright won the game the moment it came down.
That card doesn't quit. I don't think that actually does anything, though. Oh, no, it does.
It does.
It does. That's not until end of turn. That's permanent. Path to exile. They no longer have protection from spirits.
They don't.
The path to exile eliminates it again. The last card for Paula Vitor. Nothing but live hits. And now 2 of these get in front of Reflector Mage. This 5/5 gets in front of the Thales Lieutenant. Oh, my goodness. What a blowout.
Wow, Paulo with 2 perfectly timed Path to Exiles, found them when he needed to, held on to them in situations where a lot of people may have been tempted to fire them off on a very large Thalius Lieutenant, and was massively rewarded.
You know, I've seen this card little enough, and I've always lost to it once it came down, that I really thought that was until end of turn. It never mattered to me that I could have removed it.
Oh, you thought it was the trigger?
Yeah. I know it's right there on screen. Man. All right, more Drogskell Captains. Now they've all got hexproof, and this is quite the aerial assortment. Drogskell Captain, they've all got +1/+1, turning them all sideways, and that is going to be a win for Paulo Vitor Domoderosa. Wow. That was out of nowhere that path to exile, answering the Riders of Gavany. You just couldn't have hoped for more from Ro either.
Yeah, my brain practically exploded when I saw the Riders of Gavany. And then Paulo having that path as the last card in his hand. I couldn't have written it up any more beautifully.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are going to be diving into the other tables here, trying to get some information. Now, I do know that at one point our other semifinals match already has one decided match, and that is Corson defeating Canal 2-0. Beyond that, last I heard, it was that Lozano and Tinney had both assembled a win of their in. So we're going to be getting that info up there here pretty shortly. I think we might just be reassembling the situation as it is, and there it is. Lozano up against Perez, both now with a game win apiece. It's Tron up against Mardu, and we are joining in just as Ulamog is going to introduce himself to this board state.
And Ulamog is quite the card. These Tron decks tend to do very well against Thoughtseize strategies. Jose has a Blood Moon in his hand.
Had a Blood Moon on the battlefield as well. It looks like that turn was really defined by a Nature's Claim, eliminating it, which is why we had a tapped Marsh Flats that had been previously used for mana. And now that the Tron lands were unlocked, no longer trapped within this lunar effect, able to come on down, exile a couple of those lands, especially and prioritizing the basics.
Really impressive. This Tron deck, the things it's able to do, moves the moon to the side, makes some big waves. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger.
Hey, but there's a Lightning Bolt there for Lozano. That's nice. I'm always a fan.
Yeah, Lightning Bolt's just great.
You know? All right, these two Lingering Souls, they're going to try and hold back this Ulamog as long as they can. It is, of course, going to be exiling cards out of the library as well. You know, these Mardu decks, normally you would think if there is a color that can answer something like an Ulamog, it's going to be in that white mana realm. But this Mardu Pyromancer deck generally is going to be a lot more focused on being sort of this black-red deck, using a little bit of access to basics. Is this something to where Jose brought anything to the table that could answer something like this Ulamog, or is he pretty out of luck when it comes down to the indestructible 10-10? New Blood Moon joining the battlefield, by the way.
So right now, Jose's best course of action would be to have something like Emrakul, the Promised End, which I don't think he'd be bringing in this matchup. That's a card out of his sideboard. The white mana for his deck is mostly just a splash. But yeah, it's looking really bad for him.
So there's the potential of having two Eldrazi on the battlefield on opposite sides.
Oh, hold on. Let me do his deck list.
I think if I heard right, I heard that Lozano might be playing an Emrakul, the Promised End, out of the sideboard.
Oh, definitely not in this matchup. But
okay.
so it looks like there is Anguished Unmaking out of
Ooh.
Jose's deck, so he does have a way to get this Ulamog off the battlefield.
Okay, he'd lose 3 life in order to do so. It's a Thragtusk that also joins the battlefield for Antonio Perez. He's going to gain 5 life. He's also got access to a beast. But for Jose, the card that he's looking for as he continues to fire off these lightning bolts is not a Blood Crypt. He offers the handshake, and that means that Antonio Perez and William Corson are both going to line up the wins necessary to take down their own semifinals match. That means that we now know who is going to be progressing into the finals here at Grand Prix Detroit. It has been a full day of Saturday, 8 rounds of it. Then they battled all the way up to round 14. They found themselves in the semifinals, and now, victorious, they'll be jumping right up into the finals. So this matchup, we know what one of them is, right? You've got PVDDR, and now our other team is going to be consisting of Colson, Perez, and then was that Lopez as well, the 3 players that we had?
I believe so, yes.
All
so
right.
It looks like we are going to have a matchup where, once again, Paulo is up against humans. We are going to have a matchup where Matt Nass is playing his Hardened Scales deck against Tron, which we've seen before. And we're going to have a matchup where Sam Party is playing his Hollow One deck against Jeskai. So very similar to the matchups that they just played against in this last round.
All right, and that is going to be in the finals, which are upcoming. That is going to be taken over by Riley Knight, as well as Eduardo Sajkalik, and that is going to be coming up right here in Granby, Detroit in the finals. We should be right back after this.